You're just in time for NTV's Leadership Forum. The hashtag is NMG Leadership Forum. The question for the day is, what should be done to increase the number of women in leadership? That is a big question which will be discussed in the NMG Leadership Forum, which will happen probably next month. We'll give you an exact date. This is just a curtain raiser, but the question is, what should be done to increase the number of women in leadership? The hashtag is NMG Leadership Forum. We're already starting our discussion. My guests are with me, Dr. Wambui, gender expert from the University of Nairobi; Edwin Khiranga, General Manager, Diamond Property Merchants. And like I was mentioning earlier, even my constitution right now, the bench we have right now is unconstitutional because we are 2 against 1. But I have to mention that we had invited Honorable Lilian Gogo, Member of Parliament Rangwe. She just cancelled a few minutes ago. Dr. Njoki Ngumi, Program Coordinator, The Nest, also was invited. We're still waiting for a feedback, but we'll still start the discussion anyway. And Dr. Jen, you were telling me, because I was complaining to you earlier on, that I've tried to invite many women to my panel, and most of the time this always happens. And you were talking about the timing.
It was by the way, but you might want to find out exactly why it happens. You might find variable reasons.
Yeah. Is it that they have different responsibilities from the men, and that's the reason why they might not show up? Because we've also been accused of having manels. Most of the time, even right now, we are discussing women issues, but it's 2 men and 1 woman.
That would be my response, that you might want to find out why it happens.
Okay.
Because it's also good for the women to speak for themselves.
Okay.
Otherwise, we might want, you might want to consider, like I mentioned, the timing.
Yeah.
Look, it's early morning, 6 a.m. Again, it could be the same reasons that keep women from leadership, that they have these other responsibilities, household chores, that might keep them in the house much longer than they would keep a man.
All right.
Yeah.
And I'm inviting all the calls, as many calls as possible. You can call in any time and join this discussion where the question is, what should be done to increase the number of women in leadership? I see a lot of response here already. We have John Gidanga on Twitter. He says, women need to start rising up to the occasion in terms of competence, but not in gender form or competitors of men. Edwin.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Trevor, for having me. I think that the truth of the matter is that train has already left the station. I think if you to compare women in leadership now and then, you can see a clear shift in the trends. Back then, you could count a very few handful women in leadership. Currently, you can count quite a number of them. There's so many companies within our society, within our market right now being run by women CEOs, and they're thriving very well. Talk of currently having women governors. So I think the train has already left the station. It's a matter of just the rest of the fellow women who are still probably behind to just catch up. And I think there's a bit of inspiration for the fact that she has done it, 2 have done it, I can also do it. So I think the trend is shifting, and we will see more of them in the near future.
Okay. Dr. Jen, there's been research that has been conducted in terms of numbers. What are the numbers saying?
The numbers are still low compared that we have some kind of pyramid, that very few women at the top, and most women occupying the lower positions, whether in the public or in the private sector. If I were to use the universities, for example, if you look at the number of vice chancellors that we have, of the 31 public universities, you begin to see, if you go to the next level of deputy vice chancellor, you realize, for example, the University of Nairobi has 1 deputy vice chancellor. There is no principal who is female. So as you go lower, you find that the pyramid now for the women, it gets bigger. So that there are problems that we need to deal with that hinder women from accessing these positions, what sometimes we call the glass ceiling. And I think it is a realization coming to terms with the factors and admitting the factors and addressing them, rather than just saying that women are not up to it. They certainly are. only that there are factors that pull them back.
Okay,
in comparison to men.
I'll come back to you to give us what those factors are, what's really pulling them down back, and how to break that glass ceiling. But Edwin, you are the general manager. What is your assessment of your own institution?
I think right now, Trevor, the voice of a woman is more and more being recognized even in boardrooms. I think back then a woman would walk into the boardroom to take minutes. But in more advancing organizations, you'll find that they'll actually raise points which will actually turn around organizations. Talk about even the approach towards investments. A couple of years ago, a woman would invest more in household. The approach towards investment would be that of household investment. And a man's approach to investment would be that of long-term. I want to think mortgages. I want to think long-term investments. But what's happening currently? Diamond property merchants will tell you, for example, right now, over 70% of our investors are women through a strategic land investment approach, something that didn't happen back then. So we are moving this title deed from being a male-dominated field to a lady, to the women, which is a good thing to look at. And I think the, more and more organizations that are more or less advancement based are embracing women, and that's why you find that you'll find at the top hierarchy there's a mix. You'll find you have a couple of men, you'll find the likes of Edwin up there, and of course you have a few other women there who are influencing decision making within organizations.
And how did you manage to achieve that? Was it rigorous advertising, or is it the women themselves who stepped up? How did you manage to make them invest in land now? Something that is traditionally a male-dominated field.
I think it's a matter of the approach in decision making. Trevor, you'll agree with me that you'll need to think twice or thrice before making an investment decisions. But Dr. Jen will tell you that they don't need to be convinced twice. A woman makes a decision on the go. I think it's a worthy investment. I'll go in as it is. And number two, they influence others. Trevor, you'll take time to influence me as your peer to buy an idea that you think is good enough. But on the other side, women have a thing of unity. Dr. Jen will buy into an idea today. The moment she shares within her chama and her group members, she's easily influencing her peers, and they're coming in, which is not the same case when it comes to women. So I think they have managed to influence each other in the sphere of investment, and I think that is what is shifting the numbers, and I think we are likely to see more and more of these trends into the future.
All right, Dr. Jen, you brought up the issue of capabilities, saying that the pyramid scheme doesn't necessarily mean there's a question of capabilities. So what then are the problems here?
I think just so that I can just a comment on what he mentioned.
Yes.
One of the things is that today you see all of these organizations that are using a concept that is traditionally women's concept. You know, coming together. All of this, you find all of these small banks, all of this ideal of microfinancing, where you invest in a group. These are traditionally African women's ideas, and sometimes we want them to recognize that. So, and that building on it is very useful for women, only that, of course, it has its pros and cons. But I think to use an example of where I'm sitting, where I work in the university, there are various factors, because they will be different depending on the areas where people are working. For instance now, if today my vice chancellor calls me and tells me, Wambui, we would like to request you to become the principal in maybe Mombasa campus. Probably he will say, yes, you could have asked me yesterday. I'll say, no, let me think about it. You see, so that these are the things I am thinking about: children going to school, I'm thinking perhaps about a husband, and all of these factors. If you look, for example, 2014, the University of Nairobi had about 129 full professors. Just about 22 are female. So if you go down going towards now the assistant lecturers, that is where you are going to mostly find more women. But you will realize that it is not about capability, it is much more about access. That if we don't recognize factors that are hindering these women from accessing these positions, it could be factors of reproductive roles that they have to do. the fact that we still have a patriarchal society that requires women, to be submissive. If you are going to overseas to further your education, and your husband says no, then
you stay.
Then you stay.
Yeah.
If you want to go and you have school-going children, most probably you will stay because perhaps you are not able to travel with the children. So most of the time, women will choose to stay. And if you realize, they could be the same factors that women will consider even when you are considering vying for an elective position. You begin to consider, what will your husband say? Yeah. What will your relatives think? What will your in-laws think about you? Yeah. Because we already have what is structured as feminine. And masculinity and femininity, for now, we seem to think that they are mutually exclusive. Yeah. So when you begin to behave like a man, then you don't necessarily are not wife material. So for the women who are able to go there and fight for it, we are very happy with them. And yes, we have seen changes. That is for sure. We have seen changes.
All right. Yeah. Let me bring in a caller from Nandi. Kennedy, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Trevor.
Very good, sir. Go ahead with the comment or question.
Yes, nataka nichangie hii mjadala ambao unaendelea.
Endelea.
Yes. Uongozi katika wanawake.
Yes.
Ni kitu ambayo imetuonyesha kwamba kumbe hata wanawake wanaweza kuongoza katika taifa hili la Kenya. Hapo awali,
yes,
hatukuwa tunatambua kwamba mwanamke anaweza kuwa kiongozi.
Yes.
Lakini mpaka wa leo, Mr. Trevor,
yes,
tumekuja kundua kwamba uongozi ya wanawake ni uongozi ambao wanaongoza pia kama wanaume.
Yes.
Aswa ninapoongea katika Nandi County.
Ndio.
Pia katika wadi yetu ya Kilibwani wote. Pia tumemchakua mama ambaye ni MCA. Pia tunaona kwa vile tumemchakua huyu mama wa Kilibwani wote. Tumejifunza kwa wanawake ambao tumechakua, hata women wetu wanaje ambao walikuwa wameondoka hapo awali, Tibora Kering.
Yes.
Tukaona uongozi ya wanawake ni wazuri hata kwa boma.
Okay.
Wa mama ni viongozi. Hata mimi naona siku za uzoni.
Yes.
Naona mwanamke atakuja pia kuwa rais wa taifa la Kenya.
Asante Ken.
Na hiyo haitakuwa miujiza, inawezekana. Na mimi nataka tu niwape niambia wanawake.
Yes.
Wafanye bidii sana katika uongozi wao, waonyeshe ujasiri.
Yes.
Ili pia nao tuone ya kwamba wanaweza ongoza taifa letu la Kenya.
All right. Thanks Ken.
Machache na mengi msalari na wapongeza. Asante kwa MTV kwa mjadala ambao mnaongea kila wakati. Naambia hao mama mjikase, uongozi saa siku ambazo zinakuja itakuwa yenu.
Asante sana Ken.
Asante sana.
All right. And Dr. Jen, you can hear the paradigm shift and the change in mindset. Kennedy there is clearly saying kumbe hata wanawake wanaweza ongoza. So is it more of an attitude change thing, or is it about people stepping up? Because also the Nation Newsplex did a research, and it's online, you could also get it as well. They mentioned that out of the women who are vying, at least 6 of them, finds that 1 in 6 women who contested for the MP seat won, compared to 1 in 7 men who participated in the same seat. So the question here is, are the women stepping up?
Yes.
Because they stand equal chances to win.
Actually, that is very correct. That it is not what, like the caller has just said, that women, if more women offer themselves for elective positions, more women are also likely to win, because the chances are almost equal. But we have very few women offering themselves for elective positions, and you just need to look at even for presidential.
Yeah.
So if you look at for governor positions, you can see in comparison to men how many women vied. But again, we need to look at what are these factors that hinder women from offering themselves, the same ones that we may have mentioned earlier. Think about the monetary issues. How much money is needed to mount a campaign, for example, for the position of governor, for the position of member of parliament. So some of these are monetary issues. Others could also be violence. Women are threatened with violence. You remember the woman who was threatened with rape, that if she continues to vie for that position, she will be raped. Now, if a woman needs to go campaigning at night, in the evenings, which is common, or you need to travel out of your home to another place to attend these meetings, that is another thing that makes it difficult for the women, even to offer. So women may consider all of these factors and choose, okay, maybe let me wait until the children are older. Let me wait, maybe I'll convince my husband. So these are factors that must be looked into detail. For women, while they affect more women, they affect women much more than they affect men. It is the level, the ground should be made level for both male and female, so that they can have their right. Because it is only rightful that women hold Kenya, we still have about 52% women. It is not possible to say that why can't women elect other women.
And that was going to be my other question, because they form the majority of population, 52%.
Yes.
It means if they came out and decided we're electing a woman president, they would actually do it.
They can do it, but that would be, in my opinion, a very simplistic way of looking at it. We know the nature of politics in sub-Saharan Africa. And the fact that I am female is not going to remove me from the very way that we think. Everyone knows how elections go in this country. If people choose to, a community will choose to rally behind a leader. So once again, we go back to political parties and their willingness to promote women leaders. If, for example, for real, the political parties that we have want to promote women to win winnable seats, Jubilee should put a woman to vie in Central, and NASA would put women to vie in Nyanza. That way you are putting them in winnable seats. So that way there are mechanisms that can be put in place. But in situations where it has worked very well, for example, in the Nordic countries, it is the political parties themselves that took it upon the parties that they are going to have women as candidates in winnable positions, not in places where they are least likely to win. And the nature of politics in our country and in sub-Saharan Africa affects men as it affects women.
Okay. Let's take another caller before I come to you, Edwin. I know you've been quiet for a while. Andrew from Mombasa. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Trevor.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this particular chance to comment on the topic of the day.
Yes, sir.
And particularly, I'd really like maybe to differ with the panelists.
Okay.
Because actually what we are seeing at the political situations in our country, actually a leadership is not given.
Okay.
It is taken. So what I'll just say, and normally where you see the politics and our men are messing up our politics, both Jubilee and NASA.
Yes.
And I really like to encourage the women and the ladies, you see.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Kenyan population, that's the majority. Okay? Nomination, many people who go for the nomination, those partners are women. So if they just decide that we are all going to vote for our own, okay? Most of them are women. In fact, we'll find that at the end of the day, in all those party nominations, all of that will be women. Yeah. So actually, and if they'll be waiting for men to give them these particular chances, then maybe that will be in 2090 something.
Okay.
So our women, our ladies, and in fact, if you look at the gentleman over there had just said that, actually women are much more responsible, focused, okay?
All right.
And really like to encourage them.
Okay.
Most of them to vie out for these positions, and women to support their fellow women.
All right.
Not just that looking how she's dressing, she whatever, maybe the lipstick and all that. All those hair should pull them aside.
Okay.
Based on that, actually, even this gender will come maybe the next 5-10 years. Majority of the seats will be for women, and women are less corrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. That's Andrew from Mombasa. Edwin, I'll let you comment first before I bring in Dr. Jane.
Thank you very much. I think the there's a trend, there's something that you need to first of all appreciate about women, because Trevor, you'll agree with me that as much as all of us are trying to scale up the height of success, the challenges that she goes through, or the hurdles that she has to overcome, are more than mine as a man. First of all, she must play her role as a professional. She must play her role as a wife, her role as a mother, with so many children that she must take care of, as well as her position in the society and the view that the society has of her. Now, as a man also, there's a role that I need to play, because you'll be told that it's always said that behind every successful man there is a woman. Yeah. And also the vice versa is alike, because women derive a lot of pleasure in words of affirmation. If today I told my wife that, you know what, babes, go ahead, you can do it. Yes, I know you will. Then she's more likely twice to go ahead and succeed, as compared to pulling them down. So yes, they need to understand, they need to agree as women that they have what it takes and they can do it. There's always that hidden giant, the sleeping giant in them that can come up, be it at the corporate level, in leadership. And someone has mentioned clearly that leadership is not given, but it's taken. If today, for example, there was a vacancy role at the CEO, Nation Media Group CEO, there's a vacant post. Women out there have the same right, equal right as men to apply. But in most cases, few of them will disqualify themselves, that I think that role is too demanding, and based on the other role that I need to play as a professional, as a mother, as a wife, and the rest, I might not cope up with the pressure. I think it's about time they stepped up more. We've seen a few coming up and they've done exemplary very well. So it's about time that they came up more and more and take up the leadership, and they're shaping the economy. Yeah.
Dr. Jane? And you've had the response from Andrew just called there, saying leadership is not given, it's taken. So
we are in agreement with that part of it.
Yeah.
And my only concern is that as a country, as a community, we need to come to terms with the factors that make it difficult for women to access. It is very good now. We have access to education, for example. Yeah. You can see that the number of female students, which sometimes would be lower than 30%, has increased. So then it means that we can have a pool of women. You know, exposing these women to knowledge also builds their capacity to vie for leadership positions. And we have seen it all the time. When they advertised for the position of Chief Justice, what happened? Women applied for the position of deputy, even when we knew. I know some of them are equally qualified. So that is what we are saying. And perhaps I could have mentioned that I work at the University of Nairobi at the African Women Studies Center. Yeah. We deal with issues concerning African women. And these are some of the factors that we want to confront and also document women's experiences and their knowledge. What is it that they know? What that the society is being denied by keeping women lower than men? Because we know, for real, a woman could be as a good leader as any man. But that rather than blame the person, sometimes when you are having this discussion of affirmative action, it is like having a discussion on racism. And you are having this discussion with a person who has never experienced racism. Maybe they are Caucasian. You try to have that discussion and it becomes quite difficult. Maybe sometimes I fight with my male friends and some male colleagues. Some of them still, you know, they are having difficulties looking at it from the other side. Yeah. So that it is not just seeing women as incapable. It is the society leveling the ground so that that girl child, once she's born, she can be guaranteed of living her life to the fullest. To any boy. You have seen what happens in some areas. Girls will register when they go to school. By the time they finish class 8, half of them have dropped out. Yeah. So these are the factors we need to look into. That it is really not that they did not drop out because they are not as clever as the boys. The factors are the ones that we need to address. For the girls who gave birth during the exam period, some were 16, 15. I would have expected somebody gets arrested. So most probably these girls may not be able to proceed with their education, that could have been a future president. So it is just during addressing the issues that make it difficult for the girl.
How much of this is supposed to be the government's role? Or is it just a family affair? Should it start from the grassroots, the family itself going up, or should it start from up, the government coming down?
In my personal opinion, it will work both ways. If a family is poor, for example, the first thing that happens is the wife also looks for a job.
Okay. Before we get into that, let's take another caller from Mombasa. Fred is calling. Frederick, good morning. Good morning, Frederick. Fred from Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Good, sir. Go ahead with your comment or question.
How are you? Good morning.
We're very good, sir.
Hello.
Yes, Fred, we can hear you.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good, sir. Go ahead with your comment or question.
Yeah, my comment is that I am a teacher by profession.
Yes, Fred.
So my comment is that the girl child needs everything to be given unto them, and currently, as we are in schools, we realize that the boy child is missing almost everything. So if the girl child waits for everything to be done, it won't be done the way they expect.
So what do you suggest they do, sir?
So they need to come out and... Pardon?
Yes. Just lower the volume of your television set so that we can hear you.
Hello?
Just lower the volume of your TV set so that we can hear you. All right, we'll get back to Fred in just a bit. Yeah. Dr. Jane, you were talking about the whole issue of how much of it is the government's role and how much of it is the family's role.
I was giving an example of a poor family.
Yes.
If a family is poor, they most probably will put the children to work. In most instances, it will be the girl child. Not because I don't want to think of a family that dislikes its own child, but the girl child can be able to provide labor that the mother can give, caring for the younger ones at home. Now, most of the work that the boy might be able to do has already perhaps been taken, like taking care of cows. So in such instances, while it is a family issue, you realize that it also becomes a community, a societal, a government issue. Because the only reason is because of increased poverty in these families. And it is, we have heard of issues in some communities where the girls will be married off because the family can have about 15 extra cows. Yeah. So these are factors. While they concern the family, they can also be dealt with at a policy level. Yes. Policy level. And Edwin, let me bring you in here. And I can see another tweet from Edwin Jaconuro. He says, women leadership is just a dream that will not come true. Take a case study of the Bible. Where did women become kings or disciples? This attitude change, where should it start? Because you can hear Edwin here, your namesake, is even quoting the Bible.
I think, Trevor, it's a paradigm shift. Yeah. In progressive societies, women have taken up their position in leadership. Mark the word, taken up. They have not been given. Yeah. It's a matter of them realizing that it's about time that we stepped up. Was it last year after the release of the KCSE result that a joke was made that the boy child position in society is at risk, whereby most of the A's were actually leaning towards women. Look at the young generation. The shifting trends whereby it said we the young people are investing more and more in betting and gambling when the women are moving into chamas and putting their wealth together and consolidating their wealth. Now that is the current, like in your case. In land investment. I'm able to mention so many young women groups that have done a lot of investments in land and they're very progressive minded as opposed to we the young people who would want to know when is Manchester and Arsenal playing. So question is, flash forward 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, how will it be? How will it be? I can only imagine of a women-dominated society. If that's, of course, if you and I don't step up and probably reclaim the position. But again, it's not that we are in competition. I'm looking at it from a different angle. We complement each other because what she can do better, there's a field that she can do very well that I might not do. And until we come to the point of realization that, you know what, it's about time we accommodate each other up there so that she can bring on board what she's good at. Then I bring on board what I'm good at so that we can move the economy together. So it's no longer a case of biblically they were never there. Historically, they've never been there, so we don't expect them there. Look at it this way. A couple of years ago, even in matters to do with land access and land ownership, historically, we know male could inherit land. So the title deed was meant for a man. A woman would only own it by virtue of her getting married to a man who owns land. What's happening currently? Come to the urban setup. If I go to Kilimani right now and they're selling a block of apartments, in a whole block, you are suddenly going to find a good number of them being owned by women, which is a good thing because they have realized it's no longer a man thing. Right? So for we the men, my challenge is let's not be male chauvinistic. Let's support them because they're good at whatever they do. And for you, the women, of course, it's a high time for you to understand and have that self-belief that it's about time we stepped up.
Okay, let me take another caller. Josephat from Nairobi. Josephat, good morning.
Hello, Trevor.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Fantastic. Go ahead with your comment or question.
Yeah, my take is a bit different.
Yes, sir.
There is a Reddit there who's said this.
Yes.
That when a woman is in politics and she goes out there, maybe there is a conference. The husband can say either no. And by the way, she has something in politics which is big. She wanted to attend, but the husband says either no. My kid needs you. I need you to cook for me. So my take, I would say that it's not for, maybe if it was my wife, I would not allow her to go to politics.
Why not?
One reason is this. There is, like, for example, there is a time where Tangula, they were in Jacaranda ground.
Yes.
Somebody from the ground took the wallet from Tangula. So to me, I take it this way. If it was a woman, this person who took the wallet could touch the woman, who is my wife. And from the rumors we have, the former women rep of Nairobi, when they got up there, and they are politically known, they have been advertised. It's like it's an advertisement for women. To me, I see it. From the rumors we have, the former women rep did this with these men. So this problem will forever remain, as in people, when they go to politics and they are women, we fear. As men, we fear that, my woman is going to be known like for many men. My woman is going to be touched by somebody maybe when they are politicking. So my take is a bit different. I will maybe take women to go to other different things, but not politics.
All right, Josephat. Thanks, Josephat. That's Josephat from Nairobi. Dr. Jane, what's your response to that? Because it's bringing in very interesting aspects, which we may not be talking about them live on TV, but it's people are talking about them out there. But the general idea from Josephat is that there's too much violence, so he would not put his wife in the line of fire.
Thank you very much to the caller. I will make two comments on that one. First, it is also media coverage and how the media covers women. Like we had mentioned earlier, you know, if some of these things, you will find that they will talk about the women reps, but the men are left out of it. So I think that the media, we do really need the media to help us in covering women in a positive way, so that we are not concentrating. We are not going to say that women, a woman can be as bad as any man, that is for sure. But then if we concentrate so much on what is going wrong, that is where we fail to see what is going right.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that you can hear people talk about, you know, even that we have this number of women in parliament, in the county assemblies, what have they done? Yet, if you look in, you can see what they have done. There has been a change. And some of the issues that the caller mentioned are not just, it's also about issues that bring about religion and culture, which tend to be extremely patriarchal.
Yeah.
Even in the way that it is, what do you call it, like you are reading the Quran or you are reading the Bible, and the way that you interpret it, you can see clearly that it is interpreted in various ways that may favor some groups against others. And it is very easy to use the Bible, for example, to justify racism.
Yeah, like Edwin just did. He said there is nowhere in the Bible where the kings were ladies and also where disciples were women.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is very easy that you might just be able to justify literally everything. They will say that the man who helped Jesus to carry the cross was black. So these are the issues that you can see very clearly. Try to watch now that we are going towards Christmas. Every time you see photos of Jesus, Jesus is Caucasian, but Jesus was not Caucasian. He was from Middle East. Yes, from Middle East. Okay. So what we are asking people is to just to understand and appreciate that women leaders are leaders like any other leader.
Other leaders. Okay. Let's take another caller from Bungoma. Simon, good morning.
Good morning, Trevor and the panelists.
We're very well, sir. Go ahead with your comment or question.
Yes, that's a very wonderful discussion on women particularly.
Yes.
I would like to say this because I'm a counseling psychologist working with the Refresh Africa Counseling Services. The women undergo a lot of trauma as children.
Yeah.
They are traumatized at home. That is in the African setup. They are traumatized in school, and they are traumatized all along, even up to university.
Yeah.
That particular trauma, panelist, it makes the women to lose esteem. So they develop low self-esteem, which makes them to doubt themselves despite their academic prowess and leadership capabilities. So they require actually to be kind of their cognitive to be restructured. That is cognitive restructuring to tell them they are capable.
Okay.
So the setup kind of traumatized the girl.
Yeah.
When she becomes a woman, she feels doubts. She has so many doubts about herself and even about her competence.
Yeah.
The good news is this, because men, African men, have failed to put the woman at her position in the future.
Yes.
Because of that failure, the men will lose, and they are losing their ground. So we are going to have a woman world led by women, everything women, because the man is now an endangered species. Look at how the guys are performing in class currently. It's much better than the men. The boy child has gone to drugs. He has instead now lost worthiness. It's the man, the male now, who is losing worth.
Yeah.
The self-worth they made the woman to lose earlier, they are now losing it. That's why I should say in conclusion that hatred has a self-consumptive destiny. Once it consumes the enemy, it turns to self. The man who has molested that child all along is now almost going to look useless, and the women are taking over in the future.
Okay.
Then they will have to be salvaged. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Simon. That's Simon from Bungoma. Edwin, I'd like to get your response on that. He's bringing in two issues. He's saying that women have been continuously been traumatized, to use his word, and therefore they have low self-esteem. And then he's also blaming the men for having failed to boost the women in their lives.
Number one, I think there are two things to look at here, Trevor.
Yeah.
We have the historical and the modern trends. Agreeing with him to a given extent is that historically, in some communities, a woman was looked at and probably valued in terms of the dowries. Someone will tell you, if I have 2 daughters, I'm suddenly going to get X number of cows when she gets married. But that was then. Right now, when she's stepping up and she's going to the universities and probably coming to the corporate world, if I'm a graduate and probably working right now, nobody look at me in terms of the number of cows, but rather I'll be valued upon my contribution to the economy. And I think that's where we draw the line. There's what used to be done then and what is done right now. So probably a challenge to those who are still living in the olden ideologies should change. And of course, number two, the biggest role here would be again to the woman herself. Now that the trends are changing, so would you choose to live in the olden setups or would you go with the trends? So those few who've decided to break away from the olden traditions, well, and I think we've had a lot of people speaking up nowadays. I think we're breaking away from the FGMs, we're breaking away from those retrogressive cultures that used to belittle women and probably confine them into a given setup. So as much as we're developing and moving on, I think women are taking up more and more. But again, I must mention, what will happen to you, the boy child? Do you now take us a backseat that now she's taking over, let me see how far she can go? I think that will be wrong. Some of us, again, just trying to make sure that now the level of competition is increasing, so probably I need to up my gear, that tomorrow we don't end up again in a situation whereby now
the is in reverse.
It's a reverse. Now, someone quoted about the Bible, and I might want to go back and quote biblically. God said that they created a woman as a helper. What the Bible did not say, that they did not limit the extent of what the helper will do. If today you are my helper and I'm unable to deliver, would that limit you from taking over? Of course not. So I think the Bible did not in a given way suppress women. A woman came into existence as a helper. And that's why even in today's economy, you will still be there as a helper. But if I'm unable to, then nothing stops you from taking over. Remember, in most cases, you will not be given, but you need to take over and know that in this particular case, as a helper now, it will be my responsibility too. But again, of course, there are a lot of support. I'll say, for example, for women, when it comes to the home setup as a married person, I'll not be able to do a few things. I'll not be able to accomplish a few things without her support. She'll actually, many a times, you'll actually doubt your own capabilities as a person, as a professional. And you'll have to go back home during the pillow talk and ask her, is it appropriate for me to take up this challenge? Do you think I can? And you know, Trevor and a few other friends within my circle will try to discourage me, but if she gives me the go-ahead, I'll choose to ignore all the rest, and because she's told me I can, I'll go for it. And the reverse of the same is because if I'm able to push her and tell her, listen, go for this, I know you can. That is it. Now, unlike a few cases where you'll find women saying that I will not go for it because my husband won't allow me. I will not go for it because they'll say ABCD. The other thing they mentioned was, of course, the risk. A woman will fear participating into elective positions in politics because of the risk that comes with it. Everything is a risk, Trevor, in this economy. Every investment is a risk. Waking up is a risk. Now, should you choose not to swim for the fear of drowning, or should you rather not learn how to swim by drowning? I mean, that's a question that women need to answer. So I have an option of going in and learning how to handle the risk that comes with it, rather than staying away because it has a risk. I mean, if that was the case, that, you know, politics is a murky game and it has its own risk, we won't be having women governors in elected positions. So again, a challenge to women out there, go in and learn on how to overcome the risk, rather than staying away because of the risk that comes with it.
Okay, before I come to Dr. Jane, we have another caller, David from Nyamira. David, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, David.
Yes, Mr. Trevor. I want to appreciate, first of all, the discussion that you bring to on.
Thank you so much.
And again, what I'm saying is this.
Yes.
In Nyamira, na mambo, kuna communities zingine ambao zinaangalia wanawake kama ni wako chini kwa wanaume.
Okay.
Lakini wanawake wanaweza fanya kazi nzuri sana. Kwa hivyo nataka niseme hivi, zile communities chache ambao tunaona wanawake kama hawezi, iwache kabisa. Hello?
Yes, nakusikia.
Kwa hivyo nataka niseme driver, hizo mambo mkiendelea kueducate namna hiyo, tunaanza kuona wanawake kama ni watu wa maana.
Yes.
Na tunaanza kuwapa vyeo kama wanaume. na wanaweza kufanya hata kazi nzuri sana vile Daktari Chen amesema.
David, wewe mwenyewe ukiona hiyo education ambayo unasema inafaa ianzie wapi, kwa familia ama ni serikali?
Inafaa ianzie kwa familia kwa sababu like if I may say, I have a daughter who is almost graduating, anafanya engineering Chaikwat.
Yes.
Alipewa kazi ya kama amemaliza diploma yake kwa kaunti ya Nyamira. Lakini mtu akakomenti vibaya kwamba akicha kuolewa kwa sababu ni msichana ataenda kwa kaunti nyingine. Je, atatusaidia? Kwa hivyo wakamnyima hiyo kazi.
Okay.
Na nikaona vibaya sana.
Yes.
Kwa hivyo wacha tuone wanawake, our child, our girl child kama mtoto, kama yule wa kiume pia.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo wacha tuanze sisi wenyewe katika kwa community kueducate watu kama mtoto ni mtoto. Na ako na haki kama yule mwingine.
Asante David.
Thank you so much. Nashukuru kwa kunipa nafasi. Thank you.
Asante sana. That's David from Nyamira. And Dr. Jen, there are 3 issues that have come up. And David has brought up one of the main ones, perception. He says he has a daughter, Jaquat, who's doing engineering, but is being told that you're wasting your time because this daughter will not be married here. She'll be married somewhere else. So the investment you're making is for a different county.
Thank you very much, David, for that comment. I think, he mentioned, I think we had mentioned earlier, this change in perceptions will happen over time, and that some of it must be guaranteed by policy, putting policies in place. For example, like policies, the sexual offences bill. For example, that it is a criminal offense to refer to somebody as not done this, not done that. Just like we have policies that criminalize racism. So that is important. But within the community setup, where people go to worship, where people meet during cultural events, and in the families, that if you have invested in your daughter, if she gets married in Nyanza or in Kirinyaga and she's happy, I think it is those perceptions that will change over time, rather than looking at a daughter as your own investment, that you intend to get returns from. Because we normally will argue that women's rights are human rights, that this girl is entitled to a good education because she's human, and that it is a right that she can claim, and that she can achieve it. But just a comment about the issue that keeps coming up, again, about African culture. African cultures, traditional African cultures were not necessarily discriminative. It is, again, how when the writing came in, how it was interpreted and documented. And that is why it is very important for people who want to invest in women, whether it is in leadership, whether it is entrepreneurship, that we document women's experiences and knowledge. Because most of it is lost because it was never documented. Every time we think about the freedom fighters, people think about men. Nobody remembers that there were women who also fought for freedom. So these are the aspects that we need to look at, that even if sometimes we have read books that have told us about the men who are leaders, we have had very many female leaders in the African context. Beginning from our own Professor Wangari Maathai, the leader of the Maji Maji Rebellion. We had one here, Nyanjiru, the one near the Norfolk. So we have experiences. It is that we have to change that perception and to allow ourselves to accept women leaders.
All right. Let's take in one more caller. Ronald. Ronald, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Andy.
Yes, go ahead with the comment or question, Ronald.
My name is Ronald. I'm from Ukonda.
Yes.
I wish to say that I believe it all lies down to the woman herself.
Okay.
Yeah, women have to be broad enough to ensure that they can take up leadership responsibilities in our country.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in the spotlight as a woman leader for people to recognize that you are a leader. Let's take, for instance, with Jesus' ministry from the Bible.
Yeah.
Although he had 12 disciples who were men, there were so many women behind him who were not in the limelight, but they supported the ministry of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And they were leaders. Okay. Women like Lydia, Salome Magdalene, and so many of them.
Yeah.
I believe they partook leadership in the ministry of Jesus, although they were not in the limelight. Mm-hmm. So I would advise women in our country to ensure that they're bold enough to ensure that they partake leadership, not necessarily in the limelight, like in politics, but even in their community, in their local setup.
Yeah.
Let them do something that people can recognize that they're leading in the country.
All right. Thanks, Ronald.
Thank you so much.
That's Ronald from Ukunda. And Dr. I'll come back to you again because he's bringing up the issue of the change will start from the woman herself. And also earlier that Simon called from Bungoma and he was also talking about the issue of low self-esteem.
Oh, thank you very much. About the low self-esteem, I don't know how I will explain that part, but let me try. You see, now with the access to primary school education, with the access to high school education, these are aspects that will change over time. It may not happen once, you know, so that if you look at counties, different counties, and how much the differences we have, whether it is in access to health, access to education, these are aspects you will notice that education plays a very, very big part. Just accessing and knowing, the girls will also know their rights. And as early as they are in class 2 these days when they are doing social studies, they understand their rights. They begin to understand that I can be as much as I want. The curriculums have been reviewed. Now you fight, you know, previously when perhaps, I don't know if you went to school at the same time, most of that time we would sing that song, Mr. Kamau drives a bus. You know what happened. Right. You know what happened to Mary and the wife, Mrs. Kamau. So those curriculums have since been changed. Now you have more girls being included in the curriculum so that this will build itself as it goes. It will not happen in a day, but it is just must be that the community must be willing to accept the change, to change the way it views the male and the female child. That if we say 5 relations for the boy and we say 4 for the girl, what are we already communicating? If we slaughter a cow at the birth of a boy and not recognize that this girl has been born, these are the community changes that could happen. Every other time you are watching advertisements, you can watch even the films that we watch. Every other woman who is pregnant will say that she's going to give birth to a baby boy. Even all adverts will say, the man will say, it's a baby boy. I don't remember anyone saying it's a baby girl. So it is something that will happen over time. Right. And we are confident that it is happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Edwin, as the GM and not just on your organization only, do you think it's time that whenever there are positions and you decide to shortlist 10 candidates, should it be deliberate that 5 will be men and 5 will be women? So that out of all of them, you pick the best?
In most cases, you might not dictate because you realize out of the applicants, like we mentioned earlier, depending on the role and the position being advertised, a few women candidates who would have been successful, they just block themselves out. Today we are hiring the senior marketing manager, Diamond Property Merchants. Should I apply or not? First of all, I want to know who was the previous marketing manager. Oh, it was a man. So it's most likely to be a man's role. So you realize if I was to get 10 women applicants and 10 men applicants, I'll end up getting 3 female applicants and 7 male applicants. And here, the tyranny of number normally plays out. So you'll have an equal approach toward the interview, but at the end of the day, you are likely to get a more qualified candidate from the 7 as opposed to the 3. So again, it goes back to the woman applicant, to the woman professional out there. Do not disqualify yourself. you go in first. Let yourself be disqualified by the panel, but do not disqualify yourself. Yeah. But there's something that is burning that I would like to mention. Someone mentioned about a lady currently studying engineering, yes, and their community is against it, that, you know what, you're educating an engineer for another community. And of course, I've seen the same also happening in the past, whereby you're a father and you have let's say you have a set of twins, yeah, and they've all qualified to the university, but your financial strength cannot support the two of them, and you have to make a decision. Should I educate the man or the woman? So you realize that because the woman will soon get married, let the boy child go in and forget about the woman. Probably she'll find a way out. I think it's a very wrong narrative. What if you educated all of them as engineers? And then in a different set of a family, we have other engineers being educated, be it men or women. So when it comes to marriage, it's a matter of exchange programs. So you're marrying away an engineer and your son is marrying another engineer. Would you have lost anything? But it will be unfair if you did not educate yours, then your son ends up marrying an engineer from the other family. So again, it goes back to how we look at things. And of course, also for the ladies, in most cases, a lady will tell Dad, you don't, for me, I'm okay. Let my brother go ahead and become the engineer. So again, it's a matter of the women stepping up, yeah, and also some of the our beliefs and cultural beliefs changing and understanding that, I mean, we all equal, we're human beings, okay, and that is it. And
I'll also give you a moment to give a parting shot. We'll start with you, then Dr. Jane will give us the final say.
Okay. My parting shot coming from real estate, I think there's a paradigm shift, mm-hmm, and that is it. More of my investors are women, something that really like, actually, it's easier for me to market and appeal to the women buyers and the women investors, which has really worked out well. So even for companies out there, as you sit in boardrooms and strategize on capturing the market, it's a bit easier to appeal to Dr. Jane, who will buy at instant, instead of going to confirm and compare and consider other factors out there. So for other women out there, if you've still been standing on the line and standing on the fence, please know that the paradigm has shifted. And it's about time you also played your role. As men, of course, it's our responsibility and our duty to support them. Yeah. Give them words of affirmation. Let them know that they can. When they want to invest, please let them go ahead and do it. But of course, for the women, the ball still rests with you. Come to Diamond Properties, you'll find that we have products mostly suitable for women, and they're the ones who are driving the economy. Right. Let us build the economy together. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jane, your final words.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to mention something to perhaps just to say something about something he mentioned. Yeah. As a society, we need to take care not to blame the victim. Mm. You know, every time we say that the women end up with it, it is actually washing our hands of the women, not recognizing that these women don't like to be there. These women would like to own big vehicles, but we have a problem in societies in the way that we socialize our children, and therefore the way we are ourselves socialized. That you grew up knowing that a girl is this, I don't know which language you speak, but I have a friend who comes from Nyanza, and the few that I learned is something like Iwak Kadako. You know, the moment this boy is born, already the society is telling him, you are less cowardly as a woman. You cry like a woman. You know, so it is something that we will look at, that by the time that even the girl is born, you are already being told, you know, you cry, so you cannot be a leader. And it goes back to the same society and you people who are hiring, that sometimes it can be written in between the lines, who is being preferred. The way that you described the position may actually be favoring men. So when you come to the interview, what may be seen as feminine may work against the woman. So that it is very important sometimes when we are doing the advertisements that you check properly to see that it is not discriminative. Okay. So the only thing that I would urge people as we look at women as leaders is, as a society, we think together so that we don't blame the victim.
All right.
Thank you very much.